Welcome back to another episode of Baker Dave Presents. I am Baker Dave. We are here in the kitchen of Morgan Hall, and I have a very special guest today, David Kaiser. He comes to us from Fox School of Business, and he is going to show us his version of fettuccine and smoked Gouda cream sauce recipe, the one that won his wife's heart over. Welcome. This is David Kaiser.
Thanks for having me, Dave. I appreciate it.
Dave.
Dave.
Nice. So, what you got for me today, man?
Well, we're going to do a little recipe that I actually created. It's a little chicken and asparagus over fettuccine with smoked Gouda cream sauce. Pretty excited to do this.
Smoked Gouda.
Well, you got to have some smoked in things.
Right?
It makes everything that much more flavorful.
It's like bacon-y.
It is bacon-y. I actually used bacon grease in this recipe before too, believe it or not.
Excellent. So there's some variations you can put on this.
Absolutely.
Very cool. So where'd this come from?
Well, when I started dating the woman who's now my wife years ago, most of my relationships, it did work out. The cooking didn't kill her.
Excellent.
Most of the relationships I had up until that point were 6 to 8 months. So I had 3 or 4 really good recipes.
That's pretty much everybody.
And that was it. So once I started dating her a year and a half, I had to come to the point where, I had to come up with new recipes. I had to learn how to cook better.
Or you got to go out to eat more.
Or I didn't have I worked at the temple, so the paycheck wasn't quite there for that.
Oh, believe me.
So what I had to do is come up with some new recipes and learn to cook a little bit more. So I started doing some reading, and I started doing some more research watching Food Network. My favorite's Alton Brown.
Saving all of us men.
Absolutely. And I just learned to cook more. And first it was recipes and things that I would just follow from a book or from the internet. And then I just started getting a little bit more, experimental and coming up with some of my own stuff. So
and you created this.
I created this. It was inspired by a recipe. I had a smoked Gouda cream sauce at a restaurant. It was like a side dip sauce, but I decided, well, let's make it with pasta and chicken.
Why couldn't it be a whole dish, right?
Yeah, why not? So this is what I came up with. So I guess we can get rolling.
Have you ever used this before?
I've never used this contraption before.
This is the coolest thing. Like, this is called an induction burner. Okay. So this does not ever get hot. Like
not hot, yeah.
You can touch this, no problem. The pan gets hot.
Okay.
So what this does, it's really cool. They actually invented this back in like the 50s, or like a long time ago. But what it does is there's a coil, a copper coil in there, and it creates this electrical current. It causes the pan, you have to have a certain pan, it's magnetized, and it'll cause it to heat up. So the pan, you don't have to heat any air up, none of it. When you have a flame or you have something else, everything's heating up, right? So you're wasting a lot of energy. All the energy is going directly to the pan and heating.
Okay.
So what's cool about it is that it acts like a gas stove.
Okay.
One of the problems with electric is you'll turn it on and it takes forever for it to heat up, right? This acts like a gas stove. So when you turn this on high, it gets hot quick.
Right.
All right. But this never gets hot. It never gets hotter than this. If you go online, one of the cool things I saw is you can literally take these and you can stick like a piece of paper. You could stick a piece of paper here and put the pan down, and it'll cook.
Through the paper.
It'll cook through the paper. The pan will actually get hot and the paper will never burn.
That's crazy.
So as soon as you take it off, it's like nothing.
That's pretty neat.
Touch it, no problem. So they're very safe. One, for any students that are out there, one thing that's cool about this is you can have this in your dorm or anywhere and obviously not hurt yourself. They're fairly inexpensive. I've seen them online as cheap as $50 up to like $150. But it doesn't create any smoke. You don't have to worry about catching the place on fire. You don't have to worry about burning yourself or anybody else. So all those boys out there that want to impress their girl, they could do this dish right in your dorm room if you wanted.
Unless you burn the food.
Well, then you don't impress the girl, but you don't hurt yourself. So either way, all right, so we're going to put this on here. And like you heard it go off for a second. It's only on when the pan is on there, once it's made contact.
So those of you using, a regular stove of any type, and we're looking to medium-high heat here, we're going to do the chicken first to make sure it gets cooked and let it rest on that stuff. So we're going to get started with a little bit, I like to mix my fat a little bit, little butter, little oil, and what that does is it allows the flavor of butter without the burning.
Without the burning.
Right. And that's
a good idea.
It's fun to do, and it adds some flavor and stuff to it.
Gives you a little bit of flavor.
When you're dealing with chicken, you also got to worry about contamination.
Nobody likes to be contaminated.
No, so I'm going to put the gloves on for the chicken part here, while the butter and the oil melt and get ready.
Just grab a plate over here for
one of the things I learned as I was learning to cook is that you season everything, and you season it before you cook.
Constantly, you season when you start, you season throughout the entire process, yeah.
So we got our chicken here, boneless, skinless chicken breast. We're going to get our salt and pepper here, and you want to make sure that you salt and pepper everything, both sides. And what that does is it gives you a layer of flavors, and it makes sure that when it cooks evenly and cooks well, and it's very tasty.
Tasty is good.
Tasty is good.
Tasty, good.
Get that going here.
See how hot that's getting?
Really quick,
right?
Yeah, it is quick. So I'll just do a couple of these chicken pieces.
One of the things I'm just going to point out is that, like, we're sauteing this, but what's great about this recipe, I believe you were saying, is you can grill the chicken. So it's the middle of summer, you got a grill out back, you feel like doing that, you can grill the chicken. You can bake the chicken, and it's very flexible. You just need to fully cook the chicken because it's not breaded, so you don't have to worry about frying it or anything like that. But you could fry it. You can use fried chicken.
And I mean, if you want to marinate this in something, you could do that ahead of time, especially if you're going to grill it.
Brining's really
Brining's
cool.
awesome.
People love brining nowadays.
Turkey especially. That's good stuff. I did that for Thanksgiving.
There's no reason why you can't brine chicken as well.
No.
And the same type of thing. It's a salty water solution.
And it's good stuff. So you know, learning to cook was a fun thing for me. I kind of had.
Did your now wife? Did she cook with you, or did
I cooked like 98% of the meals in our family.
So she was like, I found someone to cook. This is great.
She cleans up well. So you know, she said, you cook, I'll clean up. We've got a good thing going there. So, and it's funny though, she liked this recipe, but my mother-in-law loves this recipe.
Yeah.
So her mother, you know, whenever she comes over,
so if you can impress the mother-in-law, you're in, dude.
That's exactly. She's like, David, you're gonna make that chicken thing tonight for us.
Right.
So that's pretty good stuff. So,
and I mean, this is a fairly simple recipe. Again, you can do 2-3 chicken breasts. Do this recipe for just your girlfriend or whatever.
The nice thing about this is a lot of the parts you can also do ahead. Like you can do the chicken ahead of time. Like if you're going to cook off some chicken, do it ahead of time. If you want to come home and do a quick meal, the chicken, the asparagus, you can cook that all real quick. Then make some pasta. The sauce takes a real quick amount of time too. So it's not really a very hard meal.
Not a very in-depth meal.
No, it's not really that difficult to make. So we're going to get the chicken going. And I like to use the tongs just to make sure.
You don't want to go barehanded on there?
No,
or what are you saying?
I think I'm going to stay away from the bare hands. This might be hot, but that looks pretty hot to me.
Right. This isn't hot, but that is.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's been fun to learn to cook. I mean, you know, watching a lot of TV, reading a lot of books.
Right.
You know, I never did the lesson thing, but I do have a cheat sheet though. My brother is a gourmet chef.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he went to the Culinary Institute of America.
Nice.
And has been a chef in the Philadelphia area for a bunch of years.
Have you ever impressed him with these?
Not this recipe, but other things he says, yeah, you're actually not that bad.
Not that bad.
Yeah,
that's as good as a compliment as you're going to get, right?
I'm just a good amateur is what I say. So it's good stuff.
You don't have to pay the bills with it, so you're okay.
No, just going to keep my wife happy. So that's
and that
the good part.
seems to work so far.
Yeah, so far so good.
I don't know if you can see this. That's a beautiful color you're getting on there, and that butter is helping with that because the butter is actually caramelizing the proteins in the butter as opposed to just the fat. Like you're gonna get a nicer color with the butter mixed in there. Like that's a great idea.
Right. The pepper doesn't hurt either.
The pepper doesn't hurt, but that's I'm talking about the browning part.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. The pepper is beautiful.
And it's funny. I know you do baking, which is why I wasn't sure if I should be do sweet or savory.
That's why I love these type of shows are awesome because I do baking.
Right.
So when people come in with their great recipes that are not baking, I get to learn something too, you know?
One thing I learned early on is that, while it's both sides are creative, that baking is more of a science and cooking is more of an art, I think, because you can be a little more inexact in cooking. If you're not exact, I've tried baking and a couple times I've not been perfect and it's not turned out well.
Well, you have to be careful about your temperatures.
Yeah,
you don't want to overcook something so it dries out, right?
No, absolutely not. So while this is cooking, we can actually get started with talking about the asparagus and everything else.
There's trash right there. You want me to get rid of this?
That's fine.
We'll switch over to the...
So with the asparagus, when you buy asparagus, I like the thin stuff. This is about medium size.
I find it hard to have a choice depending on the time of year.
Well, yeah, I mean that has a lot to do with it as well. And with the asparagus, there's woody ends to the asparagus. Like it's not very appetizing.
Right.
And one of the tricks I've learned is where to establish where the wood ends and the good tasty part begins is you bend it, and wherever it snaps is really where you want to go.
Okay.
So if you don't want to snap, all however many asparagus you have,
and then cut the rest
you
of them
figure out where one is, right? So we're going to take them all around here. We got our one guy here, right? Kind of make them a little even as best we can, and then you can just cut the ends off. And then you'll have most of your asparagus will be nice and trimmed and
tender and tasty.
Absolutely. Again, with the asparagus, it's very flexible, this recipe. You can do a lot of different things with it. You can saute it as we're going to do. You can grill it. You can broil it. You can bake it. It really depends on, the time of year. Obviously, grilling is a little tough in 10-degree weather.
I have no problem grilling in 10-degree weather.
I'm a little bit not a fan of the outdoors at this time of year, but to each his own, I suppose.
It's worth it in the end, isn't it?
It is worth it. It's good stuff. But and then you can just do this with a little oil and salt and pepper, as we're going to do. But
right.
You can do some lemon juice on it, put some garlic on, and introduce a lot of different flavors, which is fun.
I was going to say a quick little tip is a great thing to marinate everything in, and you've seen it with chicken and other stuff, is Italian dressing.
Absolutely.
Like and any kind of vinegar-based dressings that are going to help break down the fibers a little bit. That's really what you're looking for, is to make it a little more tender and flavorful.
Citrus is good for that too.
Right? Acidic, and that's exactly what you're looking for. So let these sit overnight in some dressing and grill them up, and they're delicious.
Yep. So while the chicken's cooking, we're going to get started on cutting up maybe a little bit of this parsley here, and this is just for a little garnish at the end.
Any special parsley cutting tricks?
Well, you can go with the ends, and you can just kind of take your knife and kind of slice off the ends a little bit if you want to get real in depth. Parsley really, and I tend to use the flat leaf as opposed to the curly, but either or is the same. It's really a garnish, and adding like this green at the end adds a little bit of like freshness and like kind of like it finishes it well, especially when you get a heavy cream sauce. Okay,
which we are definitely having.
We're going to have, without a doubt.
Lots of cheese,
cream,
fat.
It adds some color, and they say you eat with your eyes. You know what I mean? So it adds a little bit of color to it, and it adds just a little bit of fresh, outdoorsiness to it. So you're just going to cut it up real small, so that you have stuff that you can just pull right over your dish when it's done. You curl your hands with the knife because I don't want to cut off the digits.
You and your knife techniques.
Yeah.
I see. We toss the.
That's the one thing I learned. There's a lot of different things you can get for your kitchen, and my wife gets sick and tired of me wanting this gadget and this, and especially when they can get expensive. So one of the things that I do recommend that you spend a little money on is knives.
Yes.
A good knife and making sure it's honed and getting it sharpened regularly.
A sharp knife is very important.
It's critical to making sure you get things done the way you want, and making sure that you're not going to slip and cut something. And
how's that looking?
I think we're still a little bit.
Is it done?
It's not quite done yet. Yeah, it's not quite done yet.
You see, he's touching the chicken like that.
Go ahead. No, you do it. It's funny.
It's a cool little trick. If you're doing steak or any kind of meat, your cheek is going to be rare. Your nose is going to be medium well, and then your chin is going to be done. So you get the different textures, and you can tell when it's tougher, it's done.
The other way to
chicken,
do it,
you want to make sure is done because it's a higher temperature food as opposed to like your rare meat that you're going to want to eat.
Like you can get away with cooking beef, to rare.
Even beautiful.
Today's pork, you can even get away with medium rare. The FDA doesn't recommend that, but it tastes better when it's just a little bit pink inside. Chicken, though, you got to cook all the way through.
You got to cook chicken all the way through.
You don't want to get sick on chicken. It's not fun.
For sure.
And one of the things that I actually learned to use a lot of, and I'm not a chef by any stretch of the imagination, so cooking stuff as irregularly as I do, and especially when I'm cooking something like chicken, I want to make sure it's done. The other thing I recommend is investing in a thermometer. And you can do one. The instant read are really good. They have the digital readouts, and you just put it right in there, hit the button, it'll tell you what the temperature is. So that's a really nice trick and tip, especially if you're afraid to cook something like chicken or fish, so you don't want to underdo.
And you don't want to overdo either.
Or you don't want to overdo, because chicken especially and turkey get real tough because there's not a lot of fat in it. So when you start overcooking it, it starts getting, even with pork today, if you can go from real tender, succulent pork, if you overcook it, it's a hockey puck.
Oh yeah, you're telling me. I grew up eating. My mother-in-law was awesome at pork. I never really had pork growing up.
Okay.
And then when I met my wife and my mother-in-law would bake pork, all of a sudden I was like, I didn't think I even liked pork. I thought I liked bacon, and when she would cook pork, it was so delicious. All of a sudden I became a huge fan of pork, and it has to do with how long, where you cook it.
Right. My mother, who I love, wasn't the greatest cook in the world.
Right.
Sometimes she would make pork chops. They'd just be a little too tough. But now you just got to make sure you cook them a little on the lighter side. And Mom, don't yell at me for this. I'm sorry. But you got to make sure that you make sure they're cooked through, but you don't want to overcook them because they can be really, really tough.
Think that's pretty good?
I think it's good.
I think so too. It's just
put the chicken off to the side here. We're going to take that. Thank you. Got it. Okay. I'm going to grab this one, and we're going to start on our asparagus. The asparagus won't take nearly as long. Again, you can do the same thing with the butter and oil if you're going to saute it. It's just nice to have that combination in the
And
browning.
you're going to season it.
Of course, you're going to season it.
Once they get in there, though, because nothing's going to stick to it at this point.
Yep. So we're going to get our asparagus in there.
So why don't you tell me a little bit more about your wife and how you snagged her with this? Is there other recipes along the way that she was like, wow, that's fantastic?
I mean, there've been a few things.
Or this is the winner. Nothing else.
I think this was
winner,
like,
chicken
I don't know
dinner?
that winner. This is not necessarily the one, but this is one of the first ones I created on my own. Like earlier recipes I got from online sources, and there's some great websites if you're not sure what you're doing and you want to.
It's a lot easier nowadays than it was 20 years ago.
Buying
to find
a big
a
old
recipe.
Joy of Cooking book, and you know what I mean. Like Epicurious.com is a great website that I like to use, and there's some great. It's obviously all the Food Network and all the other places that you can go to, but there's a lot of great places you can get some recipes in order to make those dishes to impress, and it's certainly is a good skill to have as a guy.
Yeah, for sure.
And it saves you a little bit of money because it's expensive to go out to eat these days, isn't it?
It is. I mean, I'm just guessing. Looking at the ingredients, what are we looking at, like cost-wise here? You think since you're talking inexpensive, under $10, right?
Yeah, I mean, per dish, you're probably going, $4 or $5 a dish.
That's what I'm saying. For 2 people to eat, you're looking at less than $10. I mean,
and it's really good, and a lot of
healthy.
times if you make it's a lot of cream sauce, so it might not be completely healthy, but the chicken and the asparagus.
I don't have a problem with that. I'm saying, it's at least you're eating vegetables, you're not eating McDonald's,
There's
right?
some green stuff there. There's some green stuff there. The other thing is, this is actually not bad for leftovers either. You can make a big batch of it and put it in the fridge and have it for lunch or a snack or something like that later on. So it reheats pretty well from what I've discovered. So.
Excellent.
So we're getting a little salt and pepper into our asparagus now.
These cook up pretty quick.
Yes, these should be done. It depends on how
you
hot
could
you
eat
cook them.
asparagus raw, technically, right? It's just not as good.
Well, yeah.
So you're not going to hurt anybody, depending on how you cook it. So it really just depends on how you want the mouthfeel, whether you want it to be more toothy or more tender.
So as we get the asparagus, we're going to.
I was going to say maybe we can start with some of the ingredients.
Get some of the ingredients.
Cream sauce. Are we starting with the roux?
We're going to start with the roux.
Yay! Love a roux.
Love a good roux. Roux is equal parts fat and flour. So
equal parts fat and flour.
We're going to use butter in this case, but you can use, as I mentioned earlier, I actually used bacon grease one time on this.
I bet that's delicious.
A little bit of more smokiness to it, so it added a little bit to
Probably
it.
Probably a little more salt, so you might want to cut back on the salt.
Yeah, you don't have to salt it as much, there's no doubt in that. But, bacon is good.
I love some asparagus and some bacon grease, man.
Oh, yeah, little lardons of bacon.
Because I remember growing up as a kid, my grandmother would have a jar next to the stove full of bacon drippings.
My father did the same thing.
Nobody does that anymore, but that's like...
I do that, actually.
Yeah, I was going to say, a few people do.
Yeah, a few people do it. So we'll just let this cook a little further. But the roux is pretty basic. It's just the flour, equal parts fat and flour, and then you're going to whisk in some milk. And you got to be careful when you make the roux. I like to make sure you go slow. Otherwise, if you put it in too fast, it takes a little longer to thicken it. If you take your time and do it slowly, it seems to thicken a lot.
Slow is the way to go.
Yes.
The roux.
And we're going with a nice light roux. We're not doing dark. We're not making gumbo or anything like that.
No gumbo.
Yeah.
No blonde or brown roux. Straight.
Yep, we're going to go straight.
Everyday roux.
Just cook a little bit to get the... what do you think? We good with these?
They look good. They look good.
Pull them off to the side. Where do you want to put these?
Just set it here. Just set it here.
Okay. So we're going to put this right here.
We're good.
We'll get back to the induction. So we're gonna get our butter melted.
I love this thing, man.
It's pretty wild.
This is great. Don't look. If you're at home and you have a regular stove, don't do what I just did. Yeah. Like seriously, this is only if it's an induction stove. Go ahead.
So
I don't want anybody to hurt themselves.
We're gonna go with 2 tablespoons of butter and 2 tablespoons of flour in this case. So that's our equal parts, fat and flour. So with this, I like to use a whisk.
Got like a little bit of that tablespoon missing.
And this you don't really have to cook too long. The idea is you just want to kind of get everything incorporated. Yeah, a little bit lower, thank you. Get everything incorporated, and you just want to cook a little bit of the flour flavor out of it, just to kind of get it together and ready to go.
That's actually a great point. Anytime you're working with flour or starch, cornstarch, making gravies and that kind of stuff, you always want to cook it a little longer than you think you would normally cook it, because you actually need to, the first thing that happens with the heat is that the thickener activates and starts thickening your product. The next thing you need to do is actually get that flavor out of it, so that you're just left with the process of the thickened product, not a starchy tasting. So if you ever have a sauce that's very starchy tasting, it's because they didn't cook it out.
Cook the flour.
Right.
So now we're going to start with our milk, and like I said, we're just going to incorporate a little bit at a time here. It's going to steam a little bit. And you're going to constantly whisk as I spill a little. We don't want to do that.
Don't cry.
So, you know, the idea is just to get a nice, it's going to have a nice, like, thick glue, pasty-like kind of consistency.
Yeah.
And then once we get that done, we can start melting our cheese in, and that's where the real smokiness of the sauce comes in.
And the smoked paprika.
And the smoked paprika. You probably got this listed, like, what is this guy sending me?
Sorry.
It's okay.
See, it's very loose at this point still. It'll thicken up with the flour will actually thicken it up. And the fats as well. I mean, you're going to add some heavy cream and stuff.
Absolutely.
So. And the cheese is going to thicken
Everything will make
it
it nice, thick sauce out of this in the end. And so we're going to add the last of our milk. That's probably good. Turn it up a little bit here.
And one of the things I would like to point out, yes, there are measurements for all this, but you see you left a little bit of the milk. You can make adjustments as you go. You're going to look at your product and decide if it's thick enough, too thick, too runny. As a cook, like you had said, it's not as exact. You kind of can make some adjustments as you go.
Part of that is I save a little bit of the milk in this recipe specifically because the cheese, as you add the cheese and the cream and everything else, it starts getting real thick.
So you have to make that decision at that point. Do I want all the milk? Do I want a little bit less?
You want a sauce, you don't want a paste. You know?
Right.
You're not gluing stuff with this thing.
Building a house.
Yeah, we don't want to be putting up wallpaper. Who does that anyway, right? Just taking that stuff down. All right, so starting to get a little warm here. We're just gonna get a spoon here and see how we're doing temperature-wise. Turn it up a little bit.
And flavor-wise, because you're gonna be adding stuff to it.
Absolutely.
You should always taste your stuff when you're cooking.
Have a couple spoons handy. You don't want to double dip. That's important.
You do not want to. I mean,
if
if
you're
it's
at
just
home,
you eating it's one thing, but you're not going to impress the ladies by double dipping.
Yeah, double dipping on a date is not a good idea.
No, that's not going to work, really. Not especially a first date. You got to be pretty well invested before you start double dipping.
Yeah, that's pretty straight. So we're going to just add a little bit of this cheese at a time. And the idea is you don't want to add it all in big clumps because it'll get real clumpy and glue together. And you want to incorporate some and then get it to melt.
Do you want it real high or?
Yeah, I just wanted to get it up so I can start. It doesn't seem like it was hot enough, but I think we're getting there now.
It's hard to tell. You don't feel the massive heat hitting you in the face,
exactly.
Right?
You're not getting you're standing like this because of the flame. But you're going to be whisking a lot, so you'll strengthen the arms with this one too.
Yeah, no. See, it's a workout. If you feel like you're getting a little flabby,
you're going to work out the cream sauce, right?
So you see it's starting to boil there.
Yeah.
It's thickening.
Yep. You don't want it to completely boil, so. But you know, it's a fun recipe. It's easy, and like with cooking, I just discovered that do a little research. Learning techniques is probably the thing that you can help yourself the most because with techniques you can apply it to a lot of different things.
You can adjust
know what I mean?
whatever you want at that point. I mean,
and like you can use this sauce for a lot of different types of things, and you can make you can make it with raviolis. You can make it with shells. You can do anything you want with it. That's the great thing about learning how to do a couple sauces is you can use it for a lot of different recipes.
Now, I'm going to sound really stupid, but I don't remember all the names, but I think there's only like 5 major sauces.
I
don't remember them all because I'm not a cook.
Yeah, I knew them once because I read about them.
I'm not a chef, I know, but there's only like 5. If you learn the 5 types of sauces, you can do anything.
Yeah, the mother sauces.
The mother sauces,
yeah,
right. Yeah, I knew there was a name
French
for
cooking is all about the mother sauces. And actually, this is a derivative of one of the mother sauces.
Right,
it's a derivative of bechamel. And so it's just what we made with the roux and the milk, that's your basic bechamel sauce. And then we just add stuff to it in order to get to where we want flavor-wise. So we're getting there. We're going to add the last bit of cheese here. And everything's starting to melt and starting to get nice and thick. So then
Is there any fear of it breaking if it heats up too much once the cheese is added?
I don't think so. I mean, I've never had it happen. I mean, I'm not quite the chef.
It's different depending on the cheese. I know some cheeses break really easily and some, you know what I mean?
I think because it's a smoked Gouda hard cheese, it might not take as much. It might take a little bit more to break it, but I think we're doing pretty well. So we now want to spice this up a little bit to just add some fun flavors to it. We're going to go with some smoked paprika, and I think we're doing about a teaspoon of this. And you don't have to be, like I said, exact with this. If it's a little up or if it's a little lower. I mean, if you like paprika, and you want a little
love paprika.
Want a little more smokiness too. Oh, there you go.
Huge fan of paprika.
A little more smokiness, you can add some more. If you want a little less, you can add some less, and this adds a little bit of flavor and some color to it. I'm gonna turn it down just a little bit.
It definitely makes it seem less average. Just by adding, if that makes any sense.
No,
I don't want to sound stupid, but like,
no, I get it.
If you're trying to impress the ladies, like, it definitely looks a little less average.
Well, you want to impress them with some fun, you know, fun sounding, exotic sounding.
What's going on there?
This is my microplane. It's a very mini grater.
Right.
And this is a nutmeg. Most of you see nutmeg in powder form.
Yeah, it's not often you see an actual nutmeg.
Yeah. So, you know, I buy a lot. I like to use a lot of fresh stuff, and I like to use spices and things. And if you keep spices,
actually, it looks like a nut.
It does look like
you know what I mean?
So when you buy spices in whole form like this, they last a lot longer than when you buy them in powder. So something like nutmeg, you're not going to use very often, and it adds a nice flavor to it. Nutmeg's great with cream sauce. It's also great with greens. Any type of greens you like. You're going to do kale or spinach or anything that's a green.
Kale's
is really
the
good.
thing right now, right?
Kale's a huge thing. And my wife has me get kale all the time. I personally not a fan.
You're not a fan of kale?
But, you know, she wants that I make it.
It's healthy. It's good for you. It's like a superfood, isn't it?
Supposedly. Got to add a lot to it.
Not that you're concerned with your cream sauce.
No, really,
as far as
we're getting
go, but I'm just saying.
All right, so we're going to do a little taste here, see how we're doing.
Don't be double dipping.
Nope, not double dipping.
Is it where you want it to be?
I think we got I think so. Why don't you give it a shot? Tell me what you think.
You're gonna ask my opinion?
Absolutely.
That's good. I mean, you can definitely taste the Gouda. The smoked Gouda comes out strong.
The paprika helps too, and getting everything in there. And then you got the sauce has a nice color to it. It's not just kind of like your plain old white sauce. The paprika adds a nice little color to it.
Very smoky.
Yes. So we're just about, I think, ready to start putting everything together.
Okay. You want there's some heavy cream here. What was that for?
Oh yeah, the heavy cream at the end. It's just to add a little bit of richness to it. You want to be careful. You don't want to make it too thick. But the cream's nice because it adds
extra fat is always good.
Absolutely. Adds a luxuriousness to it, if that's a word.
It is now. Now, with this particular one, is this one of those that you would normally, as a pasta, put your pasta into it, or would you pour it over the pasta?
Yeah, what I do is I'll put a little bit into the pasta just to kind of get it, you know, going, and then I'll put a ladle over top once we're ready to go, just to add a little bit more sauce to it. So maybe what I'll do is I'll take a bowl of this.
I don't think you can use that.
No, I don't think I can. All right, so I'll wash my hands.
That's fine. We're good.
So when you get your pasta, you leave it in the bowl when you're done, okay? And what we're gonna do is we're just gonna put some of this sauce, just a little bit.
A real little bit.
Yeah. And then you wanna mix it up a little bit, just to kind of get the sauce into it. This is what it does is it kind of keep, like your pasta is, you know, so it was sticking together, you know what I mean? When you put when you take your pasta out and have it sitting in the pan, what you'll do is you put a little sauce in there, mix it together, and that keeps the pasta from sticking together, and you know, it gets a little bit of a flavor of the sauce on all the pasta.
Right.
Okay, and so you want to get that, I'm going to cut the chicken.
We're gonna plate?
So we're gonna plate. So we're gonna take some of this pasta. This is obviously a smaller portion, but we can do a full-sized.
Well, you need to do a little more of that pasta. We need 2 plates, dude.
All right.
I'm not sharing.
The sauce on there. Mix it up. And then, like, it depends on how saucy you want your saucy. You want your pasta.
I'm saucy.
And that really depends on how much flavor you want to add and things like that. Sometimes a little too much sauce is, you know, a little heavy, and sometimes it's not enough. You're not getting the flavor. All right, we're gonna get our. Of course, I only have one, so we're just
we did make that mistake.
That's all right. So I like to do it a little fancy.
Look at you, fancy.
Put a little pinwheel design. You can just throw it on the plate if you want.
Good. So you put the asparagus on before you re-sauce.
Mm-hmm. Just to add
so the asparagus will get some of the sauce.
Some of the sauce on it. It adds good flavor to it. And then, so our chicken, we're just gonna put on top here. You can slice this if you want. Sometimes it's a little easier when you don't have a board, so we're just gonna do it like that. And we're gonna add a little bit of sauce to the top.
Everything's going to taste like the sauce.
A little bit.
Excellent. I'm saucy, remember?
Yeah,
Can you
absolutely.
give me a little bit more?
Oh, you want a little bit more?
Yeah.
All right.
There we go. Now we're talking.
Now we're talking. And then finally our little color.
Beautiful.
There's a little bit of freshness in there.
And your chef brother doesn't appreciate this, don't you?
Well, this is kind of simplistic for him, I think.
I think there's something to be said for simplistic. I definitely don't have a problem with simplistic. A fork and a knife, excellent. Got out the fine china for you. So let's see what we got. See if I'd go out on a second date with you.
I'm taken, sorry.
Oh, damn.
Wait,
Nice. I think your brother-in-law is missing out. Or brother or whoever.
My brother. Oh, he's eating it. He just says it's basic.
Yeah. I like basic. I like the flavors. Way too often people overcomplicate things, you know? Oh my God. After 5 or 6 ingredients, it starts to get out of control. You know what I mean? Like people, they just keep wanting to add stuff to it, and it's
absolutely.
too much. So I think this is beautiful, man. I appreciate you coming by. This
Thanks
is
a lot.
fantastic. Thanks.
I hope it was a good time. I appreciate the opportunity to come here.
Excellent. Delicious.
Great.
And I can see why she stayed with you this long.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, Dave. I'd like to once again say a thank you to David Kaiser for joining us and sharing his recipe and his story with us. Join us again next time for Baker Dave Presents, and remember, every recipe has a story.